Imagine standing in a bustling airport, suitcase packed for paradise, only to hear your mom's voice purr through the phone. "We're in Maui. Why didn't you come?" My heart stopped when she slipped. We couldn't let her ruin it with her dying drama. They knew I had cancer and they left me behind anyway. What kind of parents bet on their daughter's grave for a $500,000 payout? Stick around to find out how I turned their betrayal into my triumph. If you're hooked, smash that subscribe button. Help us hit 1,000 subscribers and join this wild ride. The hum of LAX was deafening. Families laughing, kids running with Mickey Mouse ears, travelers clutching boarding passes like golden tickets. I stood frozen in the middle of it all, my packed suitcase beside me, the phone trembling in my hand. My mom's voice crackled through the speaker, dripping with that fake sweetness I'd learned to dread. "Leela, sweetie, we're already in Maui. Why didn't you make it to the airport yesterday?" My stomach churned. Yesterday? The flight was supposed to be today, March 15th at 3 p.m. I had the texts to prove it. Or so I thought. My name is Lila Carter, and at 32, I never imagined my own parents could stab me in the back like this. I'd been counting down to this Hawaii trip for months. It wasn't just a vacation, it was my lifeline. Last week, my doctor dropped a bomb, lung cancer, stage 1. "We caught it early," he'd said, "but you need chemo soon, or it'll spread." I hadn't told a soul. Not my team at the finance firm, where I'm a senior analyst, not my friends, and definitely not my family. This trip was my last chance to feel alive before the needles, the hair loss, the endless hospital visits. I'd worked 60-hour weeks to make it happen, wiring my parents $2,500 every month for 3 years, $90,000 total, to keep them afloat. And now here I was, stranded at LAX while they sipped Mai Tais 2,500 miles away. "Mom, what do you mean yesterday?" I managed, my voice shaking as the truth clawed its way up my throat. The airport buzzed around me, happy reunions, excited chatter, but it felt like a cage closing in. "You told me the flight was today. I have your message right here, March 15th, 3 p.m. LAX to Maui." She paused, then laughed. A thin, brittle sound. "Oh, sweetie, there must have been a mix-up. Sophie made it just fine. We're all settled at the resort now." Sophie, of course. My 25-year-old sister, the golden child, always got the memo. Then Mom slipped, her voice dropping low like she was talking to Dad. "We couldn't let her ruin this with her health drama, you know?" My blood ran cold. They knew I was sick, and they left me behind anyway. I fumbled with my phone, pulling up the flight confirmation email they'd forwarded me, or so they claimed. My name wasn't even on it, just Ron Carter, Maggie Carter, and Sophie Carter, booked for March 14th. The mix-up wasn't an accident. They'd lied to my face, planned it down to the last detail. "This wasn't a confusion, Mom," I said, my voice hardening as anger replaced shock. "You gave me the wrong date on purpose. You didn't want me there, did you?" Silence stretched across the line, thick and suffocating. Then she sighed. "Lila, don't be dramatic. These things happen. You're a grown woman. You'll figure it out." I ended the call, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. Around me, families hugged, couples kissed, kids waved aloha shirts. I stood alone, a ghost in their paradise, betrayed by the people who should have loved me most. I'd spent years propping them up. $90,000 of my savings gone to their mortgage, their groceries, their endless emergencies. Last month alone, I'd sent an extra $3,000 for this family trip, picturing us on the beach, laughing over sunset dinners. Instead, my phone buzzed with a text from Sophie, a photo of her mom and dad clinking cocktails by the ocean. Caption: "Family vacay starts now. Miss you, sis. Wish you'd made it." The rage hit me like a tidal wave. They weren't just excluding me. They were mocking me. I scrolled through Mom's old texts, piecing it together. "Flight's on the 15th, don't worry," she'd written. But Sophie's Instagram story from yesterday showed their boarding passes. March 14th, clear as day. They'd orchestrated this, every step, knowing I'd be left behind. My chest tightened, a sharp cough rattling through me, a reminder of the cancer eating away at my lungs. I'd kept it secret to protect them from worry, but they'd turned it against me. Dad called then, his voice stern like I was still a kid. "Lila, your mom's upset with your attitude. It was an honest mistake. Stop making a scene." I laughed, bitter and hollow. An honest mistake? Then why did Sophie know the real date? Why'd you insist on booking it yourselves? Why'd you lie to me for weeks? He started to argue, but I cut him off. "No, Dad, you listen. I sent you $3,000 for this trip. Money I scraped together while coughing up blood. Was that a mistake too? Or did you just take it knowing you'd ditch me?" Silence. Then he softened, trying a new tack. "Lila, you know we're on a fixed income. We needed this break. You're doing so well. You get it, right? Sacrifices for family. Sacrifices. That word burned. I'd sacrificed everything, my health, my savings, my peace, for them. And this was my reward. Abandoned at LAX with a terminal diagnosis and a useless... The coughing fit hit hard then, doubling me over as travelers stared. I sank onto a bench, tears stinging my eyes. This wasn't just about a missed vacation. It was years of manipulation, of me being their ATM while Sophie got the spotlight. I'd always wondered if they saw me as a daughter or just a paycheck. Now I knew. But as the anger simmered, a question gnawed at me. Why go this far? Why lie so boldly? Was it just to avoid my drama, or was something bigger at play? Something they didn't want me to see? I wiped my eyes, staring at Sophie's photo. The cocktails, the smiles, the lies. They thought they'd won, but standing there, drowning in betrayal, I felt something shift. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. "They want me out of the picture," I whispered to myself. "But I'm not done yet." My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mom. "Don't be mad, sweetie. We'll bring you a souvenir." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my banking app. If they thought they could break me, they were dead wrong. The fluorescent lights of LAX flickered overhead as I sat on that cold bench staring at my phone. Sophie's beach photo glared back at me, her smug smile, Mom's fake tears, Dad's smug grin. My chest ached, not just from the cancer gnawing at my lungs, but from a deeper wound, one carved over years. I'd given them everything, my money, my time, my dreams, and they'd tossed me aside like trash. How did it come to this? To understand, I had to rewind, back to the girl I used to be, the one who thought family meant sacrifice. My name's Lila Carter, and for too long I was their silent savior, bleeding myself dry to keep them afloat. It started when I was 18, fresh out of high school, with a full-ride scholarship to UCLA's finance program. I had big plans, Wall Street, a corner office, a life I'd built from scratch. But then Dad, Ron Carter, came home one night, pale and sweating. "I messed up, Lila," he'd said, hands shaking. He gambled away $50,000 at some underground poker den, and the loan sharks were circling. Mom cried for days, saying we'd lose the house, Sophie would drop out of school. I couldn't let that happen, so I turned down UCLA, took a job at a local bank, and spent 2 years working overtime to pay off his debt. "You're our rock," Mom would say, hugging me tight. I believed her. I buried my dreams to save them, thinking it'd earn me a place in their hearts. Fast forward a decade, and I'd clawed my way up to senior analyst at a top LA finance firm. I was good, damn good, managing million-dollar portfolios while my colleagues partied on weekends. But every paycheck came with a price. After Dad retired early at 55, really just an excuse to dodge his gambling debts, they started leaning on me. "Lila, the mortgage is late," Mom would text. "Sophie needs new headshots for auditions," Dad would call. I sent $2,500 a month, no questions asked. $90,000 over 3 years. When Mom got pneumonia in 2022, I wired $20,000 for her hospital bills, eating ramen in my tiny apartment to make ends meet. They never knew or cared how much I gave up. Sophie was the golden child, always had been. At 25, she was still chasing her acting dream, funded by my parents' dwindling savings and my checks. Growing up, it was all about her dance recitals, her B-plus report cards, her perfect curls. I lived in her shadow, the responsible one who didn't need coddling. But it got worse after college. 3 years ago, she screamed at me over the phone, "You're ruining this family, Lila. You won't even help me with acting school." I didn't tell her I'd sent an extra $10,000 that year funneled through mom and dad, who claimed it was for house repairs. They'd pocketed it, letting Sophie think I'd abandoned her. I swallowed the hurt, kept sending the money, hoping one day they'd see me. The Hawaii trip was supposed to change that. 2 months ago, Mom called, all excitement. "Let's do a family vacation. Dad's got airline miles. We'll handle it all." I was thrilled, finally a chance to sit with them, share a meal, feel like I belonged. I sent $3,000 extra for the resort, imagining us on the beach, healing old wounds. You're so generous, Lila," Mom gushed. Like a fool. I trusted them, but standing in that airport, I saw the truth. I wasn't family to them. I was their bank. Every wire transfer, every late night shift, every "I'll handle it" had been a brick in the wall they'd built to keep me out. Then my phone buzzed again. Not Mom, not Dad, but my landlord. "Lila, what's going on? I got papers saying your apartment's sold. You've got 48 hours to move out." My heart stopped. Sold? I'd lived in that cramped one bedroom for 5 years, paying rent on time every month. "There must be a mistake," I snappered. "Check the deed," he snapped. "It's under your name, but the sale's finalized. $200,000 cash." I pulled up my banking app, hands trembling, and called Dad. "What did you do?" I demanded. His voice was smooth. Too smooth. "Calm down, Lila. We needed the money. Sophie's mixed up with some bad people. She owes them. You'd understand if you cared." I dug deeper, coughing hard as I scrolled through emails. There it was, a forged deed transfer, my signature faked, dated 2 weeks ago. They'd used my identity to sell the place I called home, pocketing $200,000 while I stood in LAX with nowhere to go. But then I found something worse. A casino receipt emailed to Dad's account by mistake. $180,000 lost at slots in Vegas. Time-stamped last week. Sophie wasn't in trouble, Dad was. He'd gambled it all away, and my apartment was the collateral. "You sold my home for your slots?" I shouted into the phone. He sighed. "You're overreacting. We'll figure it out when we're back from Maui." The line went dead, and I sank to the floor, the suitcase tipping over beside me. No vacation, no home, no family, just a ticking clock in my chest and a betrayal so deep it stole my breath. I'd given them my past, UCLA, my savings, my health, and now they'd taken my present too. The cancer coughed its way up again, a sharp reminder I couldn't ignore. 48 hours to homelessness, 6 months to live if I didn't start chemo. They thought they'd won, sipping cocktails while I crumbled. But as I stared at that fallen suitcase, something sparked inside me. I wasn't their rock anymore. I was a storm, and it was time they felt the rain. The lax bench felt like ice beneath me, my suitcase sprawled on its side like a fallen soldier. Dad's words echoed in my head. "We'll figure it out when we're back from Maui." Figure it out? They'd sold my apartment, taken $200,000 to fuel his gambling, and left me with 48 hours to find a new home, while I coughed up blood from cancer they didn't care to know about. I'm Lila Carter, and in that moment I realized my family wasn't just selfish, they were thieves. Stripping me bare while I clung to life, but the storm inside me was brewing, and they had no idea what was coming. I called Dad back, my voice raw. "You sold my home for your slots, didn't you?" He chuckled, that smug sound I hated. "Lila, you're blowing this out of proportion. Sophie needed help. She's in debt to some rough people. We had no choice." Sophie? I'd seen her Instagram. Cocktails in Maui, not a care in the world. I pulled up the casino receipt again, $180,000 lost in Vegas, time-stamped 5 days ago. "Don't lie to me," I snapped. "Sophie's fine. You're the one in debt. You forged my name, took my apartment, and left me with nothing. He sighed, like I was the inconvenience. You've got a good job. You'll bounce back. We're family. Sacrifices go both ways. Sacrifices. That word again. I'd sacrificed UCLA, my savings, $90,000 over 3 years, my health, all for them. Now I was homeless, staring down 6 months to live if I didn't start chemo. And he had the nerve to call this family? I hung up, coughing so hard my vision blurred. The airport spun around me, a blur of happy faces mocking my collapse. I had nowhere to go. My apartment keys were useless now. I texted my landlord, "Can I at least get my stuff?" His reply was curt. "New owners took possession today. It's gone. Clothes, photos, my grandma's necklace, all erased, just like my place in their lives." Then my phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. "Lila, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they used your money for gambling. They told me you refused to help me." My heart twisted. Sophie, my little sister, the one I'd fought to protect, thought I'd abandoned her? "What do you mean?" I typed back, hands shaking. Her reply came fast. "They said you wouldn't pay for my acting classes, so I had to stay local. They forced me to pretend I was in New York, said they'd kick me out if I didn't play along. I'm just a bartender here, been lying for them for years." She attached a photo, her in a dingy bar apron, eyes red. "I thought you hated me." The pieces clicked. The $10,000 I'd sent for her acting school 3 years ago, Mom and Dad had kept it, spinning lies to pit us against each other. Sophie wasn't the spoiled princess I'd imagined. She was their puppet, manipulated like me. "I never hated you," I wrote back. "They stole from us both." Her next message broke me. "I didn't know about the apartment, I swear." Tears streamed down my face, mixing with the coughs racking my chest. I wanted to believe her, but trust was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. I hauled my suitcase to a corner of the terminal, my body screaming for rest. The cancer was winning. I could feel it in every shallow breath. I called a friend to crash on her couch, but as I stumbled toward the exit, my legs gave out. The world tilted, voices fading into static. I woke up in a hospital bed, an IV dripping into my arm. A doctor's stern face hovering above me. "Miss Carter, you collapsed from exhaustion and dehydration. Your lung scans. We need to talk. You've got 6 months, maybe less, if you don't start chemo now." 6 months? The words hit like a freight train. I'd been running on fumes, pouring everything into a family that didn't care if I lived or died. Then I heard them, Mom and Dad, whispering outside my room. I'd left my phone on the bed, still open to Sophie's texts. They must have tracked me here. "If she doesn't make it," Dad muttered, "the insurance pays out $500,000. We bumped it last month. Her name's on it." Mom shushed him, but I caught her reply. "We just need to keep her calm till then." My blood turned to ice. They'd secretly upped my life insurance, banking on my death to bail them out. This wasn't neglect, it was a plot. They didn't just want me out of Maui. They wanted me gone for good. I ripped the IV from my arm, pain be damned, and staggered to my feet. The door swung open, and there they were, Mom with her crocodile tears, Dad with his fake concern. "Lila, honey, why didn't you tell us you were sick?" Mom sobbed. I stared them down, my voice a low growl. "I heard you. You want me dead so you can cash out $500,000. That's why you left me at LAX, why you sold my home. Wasn't it?" Mom gasped, clutching her chest like a bad actress. Dad stepped forward, face red. "You're delirious, Lila. You'd never think of your family." "Family?" I spat, leaning on the bed for support. "You stole my home, my money, my sister's trust, and now my life? I've given you everything, $90,000, my apartment, my health, and you're betting on my grave?" Mom collapsed into a chair, wailing. Dad shouted, "You're selfish, Lila. We're drowning in debt. Think of Sophie." But I saw it then. Their panic, their lies unraveling. I grabbed my phone, hands steady despite the trembling in my legs. "No more," I said. "I'm not dying for you. I'm living, and you're going to pay." The nurse rushed in, urging me back to bed, but I waved her off. Sophie's text glowed on my screen. "I'm with you, sis." For the first time in years, I wasn't alone. They thought they'd broken me, but they'd lit a fire. I'd lost my home, my health was fading, but I had 6 months, and I'd use every damn day to take back what was mine. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and betrayal, the beeping monitors a cruel metronome to my fading time. I stood there, IV dangling from my arm, facing Mom and Dad, Margaret and Ron Carter, the architects of my ruin. My name's Lila Carter, and in that moment, I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was a survivor, clawing back from the edge they'd pushed me toward. They'd sold my apartment for $200,000 to fund Dad's gambling, left me at LAX to miss our family trip, and now I'd overheard their sickest plot yet, banking on my death for a $500,000 insurance payout. 6 months to live, they thought. 6 months to profit. But I wasn't done fighting. "You're betting on my grave," I said, my voice steady despite the cough rattling my chest. Mom crumpled into a chair, sobbing theatrically. "Lila, how could you think that? We're your parents." Dad loomed closer, his face twisted with anger. "You're sick, delusional. Stop this nonsense." But I held up my phone, Sophie's text still glowing. "I'm with you, sis." I wasn't alone anymore, and that gave me strength. "I heard you," I said. $500,000 if I die. You bumped my insurance last month. Didn't think I'd find out." Mom's wails hitched. Dad's jaw tightened. The nurse hovered at the door, but I waved her off. This was my battle. I sank onto the bed, exhaustion tugging at me, but my mind raced. From that hospital bed, I opened my banking app and froze the joint account I'd shared with them. $120,000 sent over 4 years, gone. Then I emailed my firm's HR, removing Mom and Dad as beneficiaries on my life insurance. Every click felt like a chain breaking. "What are you doing?" Dad barked, lunging for my phone. I yanked it back. "Taking back my life," I said. "You don't get a dime, not from me, not for my death." He froze, eyes wild. Mom switched tactics, clutching her chest. "Lila, my heart!" I can't take this stress. I had seen that act before. Fake tears to guilt me into submission. Not this time. My phone rang, my friend Jen offering her couch. "I'm out of here," I told her, then turned to them. "This ends now." But Dad grabbed my arm, his grip bruising. "If you cut us off, I'll tell everyone you abandoned your dying mother. You'll be the monster, Lila." I stared into his desperate eyes, seeing the man who'd gambled away my future at 18. "Go ahead," I said, pulling free. "Tell the world, I've got receipts. $120,000 worth, and I'm not afraid anymore." I stumbled out, suitcase dragging behind me, their shouts fading into the hospital hum. I crashed at Jen's, but sleep didn't come. I needed more than escape. I needed justice. The next day, I called a lawyer from Jen's couch, my voice hoarse but firm. My parents forged my name to sell my apartment and upped my insurance to profit from my death. I want to sue. She was sharp, no nonsense. "That's fraud, identity theft, federal crimes. We'll need proof." Proof! I had bank statements, texts, that casino receipt. Then Tessa, my dad's sister, showed up, unannounced, her face grim. "Lila, I heard what happened. They begged me to talk sense into you." I braced for a guilt trip, but she surprised me. "They're monsters. Ron went to prison for fraud in '90 before you were born. He's been gambling again, owes $300,000 to loan sharks. They used your name for a $150,000 credit card, too." My knees buckled. Tessa steadied me, handing over a folder. Credit statements, loan docs, a rap sheet. "Identity theft," I whispered. "That's just the start," she said. "They've been bleeding you dry for years." Rage and relief warred inside me. Rage at their depths, relief I had an ally. We set a trap. A meeting at Tessa's house Saturday, 2 p.m. I spent Friday with the lawyer, filing a lawsuit for fraud and drafting a repayment agreement. Every penny they'd stolen, plus the apartment money, totaling $470,000. My hands shook as I signed, but I whispered, "This is for me." Saturday came, they filed into Tessa's living room, Mom, Dad, and Sophie, who looked pale, guilty. "Thanks for coming," I began, voice cold. "We've got things to settle." Mom cut in, tears flowing. Lila, please, don't do this. We're family. I slammed the folder on the table. Family doesn't steal $150,000 with a fake credit card. Family doesn't sell my home for $200,000 to gamble. Family doesn't plot my death for $500,000. Dad jumped up, red-faced. Lies. You've got no proof. I spread the papers, bank transfers, forged deeds, insurance docs. Explain this. Sophie gasped, staring at them. You said Lila wouldn't help me. That's why I lied about New York, Mom stammered. We had to, Sophie. You don't understand. But I cut through. She understands now. You've been playing us both. Dad lunged for the folder, but Tessa blocked him. Sit down, Ron. You're done. I held up the repayment agreement. Sign this $470,000 paid back monthly, or I press charges. Fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, federal prisons waiting. Mom fell to her knees, sobbing. I'll die in jail, Lila. Have mercy. I met her eyes, unflinching. You lived off my mercy for years. It's over. Dad clutched his chest, staggering. My heart. Call 911. I didn't move. Nice try, I said. Sign or face the judge. Sophie stepped forward, tears streaming. I didn't know, Lila. I'm so sorry. I'm with you. She hugged me, and for a second, the weight lifted. Dad glared, but his hand shook as he signed. Mom followed, her sobs dry now. They left, defeated, and Tessa squeezed my shoulder. You're free, she said. I nodded, but inside I knew. Freedom wasn't enough. I'd won the battle, but the war, my health, my heart, wasn't over. The air in Tessa's living room hung heavy as Mom and Dad, Margaret and Ron Carter shuffled out, the repayment agreement clutched in their defeated hands. $470,000, the price of their betrayal, would bleed them dry month by month until I got back what they'd stolen. My name's Lila Carter, and at 32, I'd just cut the final cord tying me to the family that nearly killed me. My name, they'd left me at Lax, sold my apartment for $200,000, plotted my death for a $500,000 insurance payout, all while I fought lung cancer alone. But standing there with Sophie's arms around me, I felt something new, not victory, but peace. The war wasn't over. My health was a ticking clock, but I'd taken back my life. The weeks that followed were a reckoning. Without my money, $120,000 over 4 years, Mom and Dad's house of cards collapsed. They sold their overpriced LA bungalow, downsizing to a cramped apartment in a sketchy part of town. Tessa kept tabs, relaying the fallout. They're living off ramen and resentment, Lila. Every month, $2,000 hits your account. Court ordered, no excuses. I didn't gloat. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. Mom tried her old tricks, emailing from burner accounts. We're starving while you thrive. Is this what you wanted? I deleted them without a word. Dad sent threats. You'll regret this when we're gone. I blocked him. Their guilt trips had no power anymore. I'd heard their true voices plotting my death in that hospital room. I moved into a small rental with Jen's help, piecing together a life from the ashes. The cancer loomed, a shadow I couldn't outrun. My doctor pushed, chemo, Lila, now. I started treatment a week after the confrontation, trading my thick brown hair for a buzz cut as the strands fell. The nausea was brutal, the fatigue a weight I dragged everywhere, but I kept going. One night, staring at my reflection, pale, bald, hollow, I made a choice. I booked a solo trip to Maui. They'd tried to steal that from me too, but I'd take it back on my terms. As I confirmed the flight, March 30th, 2025, I smiled. This time, I whispered, it's mine. Maui was everything I'd dreamed. Turquoise waves, warm sand, the sun painting the sky in fiery hues. I stood on the beach, barefoot, a scarf hiding my chemo scars. In my hand was the repayment agreement, well, a copy. I'd burned the original after they signed, but this one felt symbolic. I tore it to shreds, letting the pieces scatter into the surf. I don't need your forgiveness, I said to the wind. I need to live. The ocean swallowed their lies, and for the first time in years, I breathed free. No guilt, no chains, just me and the horizon. The cancer might take me in 6 months, a year, or never. I didn't know. But I'd face it as Lila, not their pawn. Sophie called that night, her voice small over the crackling line. Lila, I moved in with Tessa. I'm done with them. I pictured her, 25, lost, finally waking up. I'm glad, I said. What's next? She hesitated. I enrolled in nursing school. You saved me from their mess. I want to help people, like you tried to help us. My throat tightened. Sophie, She cut in. No, listen, I was blind, letting them turn me against you. I'm so sorry. We both cried then, the phone trembling between us. Come see me when I'm back, I said. Coffee's on me. She laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in years. Deal, sis. Back in LA, Sophie kept her word. We met at a quiet cafe, her nursing textbooks piled beside her. She looked different. Older, grounded. They're still begging, she said, stirring her latte. Mom showed up at Tessa's, crying about losing the house. I told her to leave. I nodded, sipping my tea. Chemo made coffee taste like ash. They'll never change, I said. But you did. She reached for my hand, eyes wet. You're my family, Lila, not them. That moment healed something I didn't know was broken. We weren't whole, not yet, but we were a start. The repayment checks kept coming, slow but steady. Tessa texted updates. They sold Dad's old Cadillac. Another $5,000 toward the debt. I used the money to rebuild, new furniture, a savings account, a down payment on a condo I'd eyed for years. At work, my boss called me in. Lila, you've been a ghost lately. Everything okay? I told him about the cancer, the chemo. His face softened. Take the time you need. Your job's here. That kindness after so much cruelty nearly broke me. I'd spent years managing my family's chaos. Now, I could focus on me. One evening, my phone buzzed with test results. I opened the email, heart pounding. Early remission, it read. Keep up treatment, prognosis improving. I sank onto my couch, tears streaming, not from sadness, but relief. 6 months had been my deadline, now it was a maybe. I texted Sophie, I might stick around longer than we thought. Her reply was instant, good, I need my big sister. Standing on that Maui beach replayed in my mind. They'd tried to erase me. I lacked the apartment, the insurance, but they'd handed me freedom instead. Mom and Dad wanted me gone, but they'd lost everything, their house, their lives, their daughters. Sophie and I were building something new, fragile but real. I didn't forgive them. I didn't need to. Sometimes the best endings aren't about reconciliation. They're about walking away and choosing yourself. As the sun set over LA, I looked out my window, the city sprawling below. They thought they'd bury me, I said aloud. But I'm still here. And for the first time, that was enough.